Capturing stunning photos in the daytime is already hard enough. Now go into the nighttime, and now it is even harder. There's a lot of mistakes that people make when they're capturing their Milky Way photos that makes it harder for them to create visually compelling images that pop and stand out. My name is Austin James Jackson. I'm a professional outdoor photographer based in Southern Utah. In today's video, we're talking about 5 mistakes people make when they're editing or shooting their Milky Way photos that are making it harder for them to create those really, really beautiful images. Now, of course, these mistakes are just my opinion. You can totally disagree. And obviously with night photography, there is quite a bit of variance in terms of what kind of images people are looking to create, because obviously it is completely dark. So unlike regular daytime landscape photos, there is a much more blurred line between realistic and not realistic. But if you like my images, if you've seen any of my night images before, you will definitely find this video useful because it's going to help you to create more images like that and avoid some of the common mistakes that I see that I made when I was a beginner and that I see a lot of other beginner Milky Way photographers make. Let's go ahead and jump right in there. Now, the first thing that I see a lot of people do, I will demonstrate on this photo here. Now, that is by adding global contrast. I talked about this in a video a couple weeks ago, but essentially people will come in here. All I've done in this photo is adjusted a couple sliders here. But now I need to add some contrast to my image. A lot of people will just go and reef on this contrast slider. This is the absolute worst way to add contrast because you can see as I do it, my Milky Way starts to look pretty good. I get some good colors, some good contrast, but my foreground is now getting totally washed out. And even if I slide up a couple of these things, I still don't want my foreground quite so contrasty. So I'll undo that. So that is the worst way to add contrast. Now you could go in with a tone curve, which I would recommend doing to an extent. And you can add a little bit of contrast this way. You still will run into kind of the same problem, but at least you have this slider to kind of recover things. This I would consider, if this is like a good, better, best, this would be the better way to do it. But the best way to add contrast to your scene, truthfully, is to just add it to the sky. So go in to your masking tools here in Lightroom. You could do this in many other softwares in many other ways, but this is how to do it in Lightroom. You're going to do select sky. This will detect the sky. Now you can come in here, and I like to just scroll down to the curve. You could do this many different ways, but I'm just going to add the contrast to the sky by itself because then I can really reef on that contrast without messing up the foreground too much. Then you could do the same thing. You could do a selection for select sky again. Then we will invert that. Now you can do the same thing for the foreground, but I usually like my foregrounds to be not quite as contrasty as the sky. And that's just because I find that at night, the foreground there shouldn't be a wide range of light hitting the foreground. So in my opinion, the foreground should be pretty low contrast because it's all receiving equal light. So that's just kind of my theory, but that is how I would add contrast to my images. Don't make the mistake of adding too much contrast by using a global contrast adjustment like the contrast slider. Now, number 2 here, I'm hoping that you guys are using a blue hour blend. If you're not, I'll link a video here showing you how to do that. But blue hour blending is the best way to capture foregrounds that are not super noisy. It doesn't take that much work. Simply just capture a photo in the blue hour, blend it with your Milky Way. Now, there is a lot more photographers doing this lately, and with that comes a lot of mistakes that people make. Let's jump into this photo here. I'm in Photoshop. The first mistake you'll see, I'm going to show you. This is how I would actually blend this. This is how I want my blue hour blend to look. You'll notice that the foreground and the sky, the white balance is matching. The foreground's not oversaturated. There's no super bright spots. But let me show you the mistake that a lot of photographers make. So you start with this blue hour image. First of all, way too bright. Now, when I zoom in, you'll notice we have this ghosting, this halo here, and that is because we're too bright. So we need to just simply darken this image. So what I like to do, and I do this in this video as well, which I will show you guys how to do a blue hour blend in this video. There's 3 adjustments that you need to use. You're going to use exposure, and you can hit the down arrow there. This will make it so it just applies to the layer under it. You're going to use hue saturation, down arrow, and color balance, down arrow. Now, first of all, I want the exposure to lower. So as I lower that, you'll notice the halo starts to go away because this halo is essentially, if we look at the original image here, is because we don't have a perfect selection. Now, you could spend a lot of time making a perfect selection, but it's truly not necessary because we're going to try and make this background sky is going to blend in with our Milky Way sky a little bit better, so we're not going to see the halo. So as I continue to drop this exposure, you can see it starts to get a lot better. Now I'm going to zoom out and look at the image as a whole. Now I'm starting to like the darkness a little bit better, but think about it. At nighttime, if you're actually taking this photo, this isn't going to be quite so saturated. So I need to desaturate this. So I'm going to go to hue and saturation, and I'm just going to slide this down. Now remember, because we have these down arrows active, it's only affecting the blue hour layer. Just like that. Now I might go into color balance, and I might just make it a little bit more blue. You don't want to go too blue. A lot of people will go too blue with this, or their raw image from the field is too blue, so you need to correct it. I'm really just looking for something pretty neutral here. Something just like that. If you are interested in learning more about this blue hour blending process to get your blue hour blends to look more like this, which is obviously a little bit better than this, but I spend a little bit more time here, but I'll link that video where you can see all of those steps there to make your blue hour blends really seamless. This essentially just gets me to a great starting point on my image where we don't have ghosting and we don't have any color casts. Everything looks natural. This looks like it could have been shot in one shot, in my opinion. So this is kind of just the base image, then I'll edit it from here, but I'll link that video so that you can check that out. Okay, a third thing that I see a lot of people do that I'm really not a huge fan of, and people go both ways on this, but is light painting. I don't have any examples because I don't do it myself, but I think you really don't need to do any light painting. People typically do this so that you can see what's going on in the foreground. In my opinion, if you need light painting to light up your foreground is either uninteresting or you should be doing a blue hour blend anyways. Generally, the problem is people want to take a nice foreground image that is very similar to what they would shoot during the daytime, but nighttime compositions are a little bit different. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in this video. But just know that I think light painting is a huge mistake. It doesn't create realistic looking images. And I know there's always someone, every time I post about how I don't like light painting, there's always someone that says that they have a secret trick that just so subtle that it works perfectly. But the truth is, honestly, I have yet to see a single light painted image that I like. And if you like light painting, that's totally fine. I'm not telling you this is absolutely the truth, that you have to do it this way. It's just my opinion that it looks unrealistic if you are going to do light painting. Every single one, or pretty much every single one of my Milky Way photos is a blue hour blend, and I think that I've gotten really great foreground detail because of that. And so I think that that is a much better thing to do. Do that blue hour blend, bring that black slider up so you don't crush those blacks, and that'll help you retain some of that detail, but in a way that looks a lot more natural and realistic. Now, one of the ways you can do this is by having a more interesting foreground. So problem number 4 that people have is that they have uninteresting foregrounds that don't work for night photos. Let's jump in here. I've got a couple example images here. One thing that I'm always going for with my blue hour images is, if I can, I like to have some form of the subject protruding into the sky. This makes it so that I don't need to crazy brighten the foreground here in order for you to see the interest in the scene. I want to look at these two images here where I use this technique to essentially create really nice images. So it's almost like a silhouette, but there is just a hint of detail. I haven't done any light painting here, but these are compositions that work really well for night photos, as opposed to something like shooting down into a canyon isn't going to be quite as interesting because it is very dark down there. Now, I haven't used any light painting, so these look realistic, but if you can, in your night photos, always look for something that can stick into the sky. You know, even if it's just the mountain in the distance, anything like that. But you'll notice I do that on almost all of my Milky Way images when I can, because that not only helps to bridge the viewer's eye into the sky, but it also helps to add visual interest into the scene. And it, because of the natural contrast of the dark subject in the foreground and the bright sky behind it, adds natural contrast to the scene, which is really interesting and intriguing to look at. Problem number 5, this one kills me, is when you don't do noise reduction on your images. There's so many different ways to reduce noise, whether you're doing it in Lightroom Classic, whether you're doing it in, Topaz, DxO, whatever. So many great ways to reduce noise. There's absolutely no reason to have photos that are plagued with noise, even at nighttime during, high ISO periods. So what I would recommend doing, I like doing my noise reduction at the beginning of my edit lately. I think it works a little bit better, especially if you're going to use Topaz Photo AI. I've made a lot of videos in the past covering different noise reduction softwares for night photos. I've found Topaz Photo AI to be the best. Let me show you how it works. So I've got my image open here in Lightroom. I will right click here or control click. I'm going to go up to Edit In, and then I'm going to go down to Topaz Photo AI. We're going to select that. Now, once you're loaded into Photo AI, I like being in this view right here. You can see down on the bottom bar like this one. I like to go to Denoise All. That's just going to denoise the whole image, which is exactly what I want. And this will automatically select the settings, but you can, of course, adjust them if you want to maybe try a more aggressive denoise, or if your photo is really noisy. But as I slide this, and I might need to zoom in depending on if you're watching this in 4K 1080 or something lower, but you can see, look at how much noise I've removed there, and I've literally clicked like twice. It's so easy to load in here. It doesn't kill the stars. It removes noise in both the foreground and the sky, so it's a no-brainer. I would hit Export Image. Of course, I would scroll around, do my due diligence to make sure this looks good everywhere. But once I am done and ready, I would hit Export Image, go back in, and do my edit from here. There's really no reason why I need to have all this noise. You could even come back in later after you do the edit and polish off the noise reduction. Now, even better yet, rather than just shooting individual photos at high ISOs, you can just get a star tracker and do a blue hour blend. Then you can have clean images without doing any noise reduction like this one here that I'm showing you. Most of my stuff is star tracked with a blue hour blend. So you get much, much cleaner images that don't quite have so much noise and they have a lot more detail. That's the best way to do it. But if you don't have access to that or you don't want to do that, definitely make sure you do a noise reduction. If you do want to do that, that's a song for another time. I'll link a video that you can check out here. But otherwise, those are my 5 biggest mistakes people make in their Milky Way photography that's really, really hurting them, making their images not quite look as good as they possibly could. So I'd love to know if there's anything that you personally struggle with your Milky Way photos, or any tips or tricks that you would give to someone if you think that there's something that I've missed here that's a common mistake that people make. But these, I think, are the 5 most common things I see amongst people online, people at my workshops, and these are all really, really easy to fix, things that you can do to literally improve your Milky Way photos overnight. Let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. I'd love to hear from you guys. I try and respond to everybody. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Leave me a like and a subscribe to help me to grow my channel. We'll see you guys next time.